When Homeland Security began asking hotel staff to report heavy condom use by their customers, it came as a surprise to just about everyone who was paying attention. But this has been part of an ongoing anti-sex trafficking initiative, including mall ads, employee training modules, and public service announcements.
Soliciting for the purpose of prostitution, recruiting underage girls for the purpose of prostitution. What's going on here?
As recent blogger Elizabeth Nolan Brown points out, law enforcement agencies have been steadily focusing on sex work as the result of an unlikely coalition.
Since the 90s, a kind of group of radical feminists and a group of Christian fundamentalists have been really working to get all prostitution redefined as sex trafficking. It's been a sort of long game strategy that's been ramping up throughout the whole aughts, and then in the past few years, though, has really taken off.
Because there's no distinction between consensual and forced sex work, government efforts to stop sex trafficking ends up invading personal privacy. Talk about why Homeland Security is interested in your condom use.
Homeland Security has been having a lot of initiatives to try and train various industries on what they consider the signs of sex trafficking. And so this includes airline staff and strip club workers, and also a big push is for hotel staff. And so they've been putting out all these training modules and campaign posters and things to hotel maids and clerks with signs of sex trafficking.
And this includes things like garbage cans containing many used condoms.
Yes, it said one of them was too many used condoms, things like asking to have the minibar restocked too frequently, having too few possessions or too many possessions. It's just a lot of really silly things. And when you get to the end of the, all of the things taken together, it's pretty much any activity could be construed as suspicious.
You've also written a lot about feds taking down websites. Talk about some of the websites that have been taken down and the rationale for that.
They recently helped in Seattle take down a site called the Review Board. Department of Homeland Security over the summer took down Rentboy.com, which was a gay-escort site. And they've been going after Backpage.com, which is a classified advertising site, much like Craigslist, but they haven't been able to actually make a significant dent in that yet. But basically their rationale is that these are sites where anybody can post an ad. I mean, there's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of ads going up every day from users, selling cars, asking for babysitting services, and there's also a section that has adult services, including some legal and some illegal forms of sex work. And occasionally people who are sex trafficking victims, their pimps or their traffickers will post ads there. And so the federal government has been trying to hold Backpage criminally liable for the ads that are posted there, and some of these other sites hold them criminally liable for the user-generated content that is posted there.
And that contravenes established precedent or legal precedent where the publisher of a site is not necessarily responsible for the material.
Right. It goes against about 20 years of policy in that area. And Backpage is actually suing the federal government right now to try and get that liability removed.
Talk a little bit about what kind of stings get covered under, whenever Super Bowls happen and we're trying to crack down on sex trafficking.
Yeah, because of the whole myth that there's a lot of sex trafficking around the Super Bowl, they do a lot of stings. And basically it's cops posing as sex workers online and then having men who want to solicit prostitution come and meet them at a hotel and then arresting them when they're there.
Does law enforcement, whether at the national level or the state or local level, talk about how they slide back and forth between kind of honest prostitution, for lack of a better term, and sex trafficking, and why is one considered so much worse than the other?
Yeah, I mean, sex trafficking is when someone is being forced into it. That's the thing that should be a crime, not consensual sex between adults. And they just sort of almost use the two words interchangeably. I mean, you saw all these press releases about this National John Sting Day, and they were all saying, this was aimed at sex trafficking, or even this was aimed at child sex trafficking. But ultimately they arrested, I think, over 550 men for solicitation of undercover cops. They arrested at least 100 women for prostitution, and they found 7 teenagers that were working in prostitution. So, and though they're legally defined as sex trafficking victims. So ultimately what you see here,
even if they're
not forced. And so we don't know if they are being forced or not. One of the people that was arrested was because a 20-year-old got arrested because she was working with a 17-year-old, and that's legally made her a sex trafficker. So that's one of them that was arrested. So you see that even though it's being billed as a sex trafficking initiative to stop it, it just ends up sort of like a giant, massive national vice sting.
What is driving the interest in sex traffic, or a kind of what seems to be a heightened awareness among law enforcement and the media about sex trafficking? Is there an actual increase in sex trafficking, or why are we suddenly talking about sex trafficking as opposed to prostitution?
since the 90s, like a kind of group of radical feminists and a group of Christian fundamentalists have been really working to get all prostitution redefined as sex trafficking. It's been a sort of long game strategy that's been ramping up throughout the whole aughts, and then really in the past few years, though, has really taken off for a couple of reasons. More media attention, more congressional attention, some new laws that got a lot more money going to states to work on this issue, so they have a whole lot of money that they can use if they just call vice stings sex trafficking stings. So I think it's a lot of different things, but it's that nowhere in those does it seem like an actual increase in sex trafficking is to blame for this increased attention.
Well, we'll leave it there. Elizabeth, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
For Reason TV, I'm Nick Gillespie.